Right. Well, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jeff Mitchell. I work here at Rhodes Scholar, and it's my pleasure to host today's virtual lecture, Mexico and Baja California, Uniqueness in Biodiversity and Conservation. Now, these virtual lectures are free and available not just to Rhodes Scholar participants, but they are available to anybody who wants to learn, so please spread the word. This series of online lectures is critical to helping us pursue our not-for-profit mission of making learning accessible to as many lifelong learners as we can. And that includes those who do not have the physical ability, the financial means, or the option to leave their home and come join us on a program. Ultimately, this virtual lecture series would not be possible without the support of viewers like you who've helped fund this project through many generous donations. So please, consider making a donation to Not-for-Profit Rhodes Scholar so that we can continue to provide educational experiences both in the classroom and out on our 5,500 learning adventures all around the world. Visit www.rhodesscholar.org/give to show your support with a monetary donation. Every dollar helps. So while the Rhodes Scholar headquarters is based in Boston, we have offices and staff all around the world. And today you will be hearing from Veronica Luka. Born in Mexico City, Veronica Luca Rangel adopted Ensenada as her home in 1994 when she settled there to study oceanography at the State University. Her passion to protect the environment inspired her to continue in the university as an environmental education teacher. Her enthusiasm has helped fuel the development of remote villages in Baja California, organizing cultural and environmental events, as well as participating in summer programs with Kumeyaay and Pai Pai Native communities. Veronica is a featured expert on our Rhodes Scholar programs, including program number 12315, the Great Gray Whale Migration and Baja's Natural Wonders. Now, before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes. There will be a Q&A following our session. So Veronica will present for approximately 30 minutes, after which we will host a 10 to 15 minute question and answer. And during that session, you can submit your questions using the question and answer icon that's located at the bottom of your screen. Afterwards, I will read a few questions live for Veronica to answer. Now, there are a lot of you watching live, so apologies if we do not get to your question. We will certainly try our best to get through as many as possible. Should technical issues force you to miss any portion of our webinar, do not worry. We will be adding a recording of this lecture to our online library afterwards for all to watch. And finally, at the end of our Q&A and our time here together, you will be prompted to take a very short survey, just like you're on a regular Rhodes Scholar program. And we ask that you just take a few moments to fill it out. Your feedback is immensely helpful to us and will help us grow and improve this virtual lecture series. So, without further ado, let's have a warm virtual welcome for Veronica Luka.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very, very glad to be here sharing with all of you. And I'm glad you could make it. Maybe for some of you in some parts of the world, it's even good afternoon. So hello to all of you. Well, with no much further saying, since you already know all that about me, yes, I am somebody from the city, big city, and somehow I always was very fascinated with everything regarding the ocean. So yeah, my experience is that I moved to Baja California. When you are born in central Mexico, it has changed these days, but this is a very nice map of what you can see as the whole country, a beautiful shape, we believe, we Mexicans. And we are here. Mexico City would be somewhere around where I'm pointing out in this moment with this cursor. And when you are planning to go to the beach, you would go definitely somewhere in the Southern Pacific, which are, until these days, some of the most famous, popular places that whenever somebody's thinking about visiting Mexico, we definitely either think of Southern Pacific or the Caribbean, right? Places like Cancun or Mazatlan in the Pacific, Acapulco, Puerto Vallarta, Ixtapa, and all of these places where we can imagine being in these white sandy beaches and just wearing our swimsuits in order to go in the water, lots of heat and humidity. Well, that was my idea also, but then of the rest of the coastline in Mexico, but I was only 19. So in those days, we even considered Baja California like the other Mexico, right? We have a very unique place in the global panorama of biological diversity, which is very privileged. When you are thinking of a country of or any region that has this number of species located, both plants and animals, marine and land, located within its boundaries, you need to think of 5 different aspects to be classified as a place with a lot of diversity. So the geographic position, obviously, it is including all the evolutionary history with creating all these biographic regions that have all the aspects of temperature and quality of soil, and what was the history, how in geology it created all of these possibilities for plants and animals to evolve. The landscape is connected to that. This is being so diverse. A landscape can provide all different sorts of soils, nutrients that little by little throughout the millions of years would be able to provide whatever a species needs to survive and be adaptive in those conditions, and creating what we know as the weathers, which, by the way, this is something that has been, of course, changing like just in the rest of the world. The isolation is important also to create a large number of species within a territory. In Mexico, we are very blessed to have a lot of coastline, as you can see in this map, having all of these species within. We also not only have mainland and both our Yucatan and Baja California peninsulas, but a total of 1,365 islands, but other researchers, other authors have been talking about maybe up to 4,000 different islands in total, including small ones. In the Northwest Pacific, we have quite a large number, a total of 584, creating all of this uniqueness also in this isolation. And in size, we are the country in number 13 in the world, the largest number 13, creating what we know as all this culture, knowing of these ancient cultures from thousands of years ago, the Native Americans in Mesoamerica who had already been domesticating both animals and plants when the Europeans arrived. This privileged place within the Earth, it's also because of its position. We are located between parallels 32 and 14 in the north, and across the country goes the Tropic of Cancer. So that creates this division, or it's exactly within the division of this Nearctic region, which is in deeper blue in this map down here. And then the line that we know as the Mexican Transition Zone, creating other sorts of environments and other sorts of climates, and of course, different species living there. This is the Nearctic template cold and subtropical arid. So we hold here both lots of our mountain ranges, but also most of the desertic region in the whole country. And in Baja California, as you can see, we have actually both. But the very southern end of the peninsula is where we meet the neotropical region. So sometimes when we think of Baja, might be your case, or maybe you've been even there visiting, we think of Los Cabos region, right? Cabo. And then again, it meets this description of being hot and being very, very sunny, and even at least not so cold waters, right? But it changes totally when we are going up to the Nearctic region, and that creates something that I'm going to be telling you more further on. So this is the area that is between the Sierra Madre, a mountain range right here in the started in the south and going all the way up north west, and the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt. And then we have a total of 6,900 miles of coastline, Gulf of Mexico, Mexican Caribbean, Southern Template Pacific, Gulf of California, and Northern Pacific, which is colder, creating a marvelous second place in the world of the largest number of ecosystems that can be found within a territory. And according to Köppen Climate Types of Mexico, we have, out of 15 different climates that exist in our planet, we hold within our territory in Mexico 13 of them. So there are forest, oak, conifers, cloud, tropical, rainforest that you can find within. If you look at the Baja California peninsula, we have here at least 4 different colors. So of course, what is all the rainforest, monsoon and savanna, which are the blue ones, are located in these areas and mainly in the Yucatan Peninsula and Gulf of Mexico. But then we hold, of course, the hot desert. The very red one is the most representative idea of Baja California. And in the very south, we go to hot summer Mediterranean and semi-arid areas, for also some summer Mediterranean here in the northern part, very close to the border, that we can have our own Baja Med climate. We are home of 10 to 12% of terrestrial plants and animal species in the world, which is a lot, that give us very first places in diversity. So first place in cacti, second in reptiles, only below Australia. That is kind of the idea that we get of a lot of reptiles and different and weird ones, unique in Australia. Third below Indonesian, Brazilian mammals, and fifth both in amphibians and vascular plants. We are the superior plants, the ones with roots and leaves and trunks, below Brazil, Colombia, China, and Indonesia. This diversity creates also, of course, what comes with all of what you can see with your eyes. Humans, we perceive with our eyes and we with our senses, and we interpret the world with the ways we do housing and clothing and create our tools and foods and even the language. So it's not a surprise that even today, currently within the Mexican territory, there are still 66 native languages spoken on a daily basis and 240 dialects. There has been 5,000 different domesticated plants, most of them still widely collected today, that are used in the world. Many of them are located in Baja, even though in Baja we only have 5 of these different native languages still being spoken, and we are losing many of them. For those of you maybe located in Southwest California, you might be familiar with the Kumeyaay region, which is what we share before the border was established of the two countries. A lot of medicinal plants also come from Baja California. Still, Baja California is kind of this natural laboratory that has a wide variety of one of the 3 richest inventory of the medical herbs that exist in the world. And it was very enriched, of course, 500 years ago, when there was this Columbian exchange, or by other authors named as the Great Exchange, where Mesoamerica gave the world up to 80 different species of cultivated plants, of course, now that are used on a daily basis. Tobacco, peppers, avocado, peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, corn, of course. We are children of corn in this part of Mesoamerica, beans and vanilla. And from Europe came the livestock, some of the grains, wheat and barley and rice, that are now basically forming our main diet. So it has been enriched. And speaking of food and things that have been enriching our culture, well, in Baja California has been no exception of creating our own tacos. Whatever you think of Mexico, visiting Mexico, not only because of the landscape you would find and the maybe high status or high quality of conservation, and of course the great weather, we also think about food. The Mexican food is, Mexican cuisine is one of the top 5 most diverse and rich in the world. And here you can have a little idea of what to eat when you go to a different state. This is a taco guide for any of you who would think that they go as simple as one or two, but they're not. And here in Baja California, being surrounded by so much water, well, of course, the typical tacos that we can find and typical food would be fish taco. Highly recommended when you visit. Mexican cuisine also is part of the UNESCO World Intangible Cultural Heritage for now 10 years. And well, we are very familiar with some of that, but it's a combination. That's what especially very clearly in Baja California has been ingredients coming from Europe, Asia, and Africa, creating what we know because of the Jesuits implementing all of these missions and bringing all of the food that was definitely not happening in Baja California's agriculture, creating what is very now locally known as the Baja Med cuisine, part of Mexican cuisine, but very regionally particular of what you can enjoy in the northern part of the peninsula, in our precious wine country. Now, going directly to the main topic of this talk, mega biodiversity. There are a total of 17 countries that can hold that kind of long word and concept. But this is because within their territories, they hold up to 70% of the world's different species of living plants and animals. Of course, USA is one. Size and large number of ecosystems help. Mexico is another one, and you can see the rest of them in this map. They are holding also the same characteristics, being the size, the isolation, and the landscape, and the history, the biological and geological history of what has happened in that area that created all of these number of species taking place at the same time. So in Baja, when we are thinking of places that is not only something that is for Mexicans or Mexicans to enjoy or visitors, but we actually hold this responsibility of having all of these places where this diversity has happened, and we now have to think globally. And it has been happening for almost 100 years now, little by little. This idea has been getting into Mexicans and also especially in governments to protect it. So nowadays, currently, we hold in the UNESCO Natural World Heritage 6 sites for this category, natural. So you have here the 6 of them, where 2 are located, a total of 6 we have in Baja California, 2 are located, in Mexico, 2 are located in Baja California. So right here, the first one is the Gulf of California islands and natural protected areas. And then we have here in the center, that I'm gonna be showing you more about it, the Biscarino Biosphere Reserve. Okay, the other ones are the monarch butterflies, the pinacate in Sonora, Campeche here, Calakmul since 2004, Mayan, Quintana Roo, and that makes the total of 6. So what do we do in Mexico to conserve all of this gift that the evolution and the earth, climates, and ecosystems has given? So we create a system of what we call natural protected areas. Our natural protected areas will be heard like this in Spanish: área natural protegida. So in Spanish goes ANP, and that's what I'm going to be referring at as. I know that I'm aware that in the United States, they're called national parks. Well, it's the same idea in general, but we have some particularities. So we have in total, out of the whole territory that is our country, a total up to date of 11.4 in national land surface, at 22.1 in national marine surface. So there is a plan that started a few years ago that the government was meaning to get it up all the way to 14% of natural protected areas, or the total territory. But what we are facing with is in Mexico always cut in our budget. So there are many of these large extensions that are always struggling with the lack of means, both in human resources, in vehicles, in the available capacity of carrying out research. And that is what is one of the biggest challenges in order to rethink how can we do something of creating jobs, creating a healthier economy for what we want to protect, but instead of just thinking of no, don't touch, stay away, humans are not allowed, how can we combine it? So for more than 50 years in the contemporary time of Mexico, they have been thinking, lots of thinkers, lots of research, non-profit groups working together with the in research and universities and the government, and of course the local communities. So what we have in Mexico, maybe being different to other parts of to other countries of the world, is that we also have something that are called volunteer conservation areas, which means that people own their land, private owners, and or a communal group, and they would voluntarily decide to protect it and receive the support from the government. In the AMPs, we have 6 different categories, and here in this figure, you can see the total number. So we have a total number of 67 national parks in the whole country, 44 biosphere reserves, 40 flora and fauna protection areas, 18 sanctuaries, 8 natural resources protection areas, and 5 natural monuments. So I was telling you about these natural monuments, and some of them are the ones, either the biosphere reserve or the natural monuments, which are also these UNESCO sites. So the way we work, and why do we have all of these categories, is because they are organized in having a nucleus zone, which is that after a lot of research and inventories of what species live there, what is the capacity of that ecosystem to hold some change, they would be defining that area as a no-touch, as just leave Mother Nature do its way, let it be living and providing all of this knowledge and all of these possibilities of enjoying. And then the buffer zone. The buffer zone is where human activities are allowed, but in a sustainable way. So there are these plans that are telling each one of these categories, each one of these natural protected areas, how to carry out these activities. For example, when you look at this map, and well, before I go to the examples, and this is the total of those 11.4 areas in the land and 22% of the marine areas. And you see all this when you see the whole territory, it doesn't look like that big anymore, areas, but here in the Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula, we find some of the largest, but definitely Baja California stands out as a peninsula. Look at all these very darker colors showing you which are all of these natural protected areas that we have in the peninsula. So being remote, being almost an island, only attached by this area, northern part, to the main continent or to the main country also, and surrounded by water, being isolated, hard to get, a big desert, lack of water, has given the opportunity for government to create national parks before they are developed. So even though in numbers they don't add up that much, in extension they do. So Baja California is a beautiful shaped peninsula that, if you would be thinking in a straight line from the border with San Diego and Tijuana, USA, Mexico, all the way to Los Cabos, it would be in a straight line, a total of 806 miles. But if you want to do it by road, it would be on a highway that takes 1,059 miles long to travel the whole thing. Then the width, it goes differently from the wider parts of 143 miles to the very narrower of here, down here in the La Paz area, which is the capital of southern Baja state, for 28 miles. So there are 2 states. This is the line that divides the 2 states. We have Baja California, just like that, the same name as the peninsula, and also Baja California Sur, S-U-R, meaning south. Islands, well, we have lots of them. I will be showing you a map for a little bit further on of with the names. They the Pacific ones are blessed with the rich and cold California current system that comes all the way from Alaska. And actually, the gray whales, when they are migrating, also get use of, use and take advantage of that California current to show them also apparently the way in which they need to come to the lagoons for their nursing and breeding grounds in the winter. And in the Gulf of California, we have the Colorado River Delta, which is another protected area, but and also providing lots of these nutrients that has been given the name of a very, very rich area. So we have a total of 2 national parks, 4 marine national parks, sorry, the first one's land, 5 biosphere reserve, 4 flora and fauna protection areas, and 1 sanctuary. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of a trip coming from north. Imagining that we are right here in the north after visiting wine countries and seeing at this creative landscape of the wine region, which will take us to the first 2 national parks, which are in a mountain range. Then we will go through the south in the central part of the desert, changing states, crossing parallel 28, entering the Biosphere Reserve, and then telling you a little bit about what we can find in the Gulf of California. So one of my big surprises when I went to Baja was to find that there is this high national parks or these mountain ranges that is both Constitucion 1857, or some others know it as Laguna Hanson. There we can find this a forest. No, this in the middle of what it's not all about beach and desert, but we can find a forest. People can go camping. There's no development in there. Some people own the land, so they have a certain number of permits to do some logging, but it's a very sustainable way. There's snow in this Laguna Hanson Park. And just south of it, not too far, we find the highest peak in the whole peninsula, but it's located in the north, and it's called San Pedro Martir. It's a national park, which started because of having the observatory. The observatory, one of the most important observatory in Mexico and in the world. It is an altitude of 10,000 feet, the highest peak, which is Picacho del Diablo, or Devil's Peak. And you can see here in this photo of the winter. This was a perfect place to start the program of the reintroduction of the California condor in Baja California. And that happened in 2004. Currently, we are having more than 36 different individual California condors. Most of them have been brought from the captivity programs in the US. So we have this binational, very efficient and very successful program carrying out in our San Pedro Martir, beautiful mountain range. And from there, you keep going and south, you leave the coastline behind. This is when we change from the California coastline region or coastal region, and we enter what we know as the Sonoran Desert region. This is when we are trying to talk about different plants that are located there. We are entering a place where some botanists, visitors, geologists, surfers, and many people who travel the peninsula would think of one of the weirdest landscape in Mexico, definitely, but I suppose in the world. There is this particular plant, very iconic, that is called the cirio. Cirio is the name, like it is written here, and it has been given the name in English as bujum. The translation, it's more like a big candle that is used in mass. And it has been a natural protected area since 2000. There is no other place in the world where you can find this plant. It only grows within this range of the same area where the Bujum Valley is located. But it's not the only one. It's a very unaltered ecosystem. It's desertic. It only gets annual precipitation of 2 to 3 inches of rain a year. So it's very hard to live there. In the whole peninsula of Baja California, the water comes from the mountain ranges, and the communities, human communities living there historically have been getting their water from the underground, the aquifer, and they depend on the very little water and both also the plants and any living being. But it's more like transition into a forest, into a garden. It's like a desert forest kind of thing. It's amazing and surprises every single person who visits for the first time the amount of plants. There are more than 600 different plants that you can find in this flora and fauna protected area. The highway one goes just in between, all along, all the landscape you are looking around you, and it has a very high cultural wealth um, of rock paintings. You have to be a good hiker and be willing to do it, and spend time with the local communities that provide these cabins for you and guides who will take you to visit all of this cultural wealth, or do it on your own on Highway 1. It's amazing that the local communities are still depending on cattle, fishing, and ecotourism for keep on living there. So I was just showing you all of this in the Bujum Valley, which is right where the two states are going to change. So we are here in the state line, and before we go to the south for the last part, it would be the islands. I want to mention that there is a very important national park that includes all the Pacific, Baja California Pacific islands in one single protected area. Very recently, is the most recent one that was declared in 2016 after a lot of hard work. It is high in productivity because of these cold waters, and the local communities of fishermen basically are depending on species like abalone, sea urchin, sea snail, lobster, seaweed to be able to live there, right? So it's very, very productive. They hold a lot of species of birds. For example, San Benito Island over there, it would be a total of 2 million birds that are there in 1 year, a total of 13 species. Guadalupe Island, as you can see somewhere around here, it is holding here the albatros, largest community, the California sea lion, marine elephants. I'm going to show you photos in a second. And the Gulf of California is holding many different islands, in total at more than about 1,000, but the largest ones are depicted right here. And in the San Pedro Martir Island, for example, there is the most important in the world blue-footed booby colony. So by some researchers, this has been described as the Galapagos. Well, not as the Galapagos, but I mean in the same importance, in the same information that it can provide, in the same variety of unique species, both plants and animals, and the nesting of very important number of birds. So this is just a general photo. This is the albatross in Guadalupe Island, the elephant seals or marine elephants that are living there. Well, there are the egrets and hummingbirds and pelicans, and the list is very, very large, just in that northern part. This one is about Gulf of California in the south, Espiritu Santo, in front of La Paz. And this is also where this is what the fishermen look like and when they are on their boats, showing here abalone and lobster and the sea urchins that they are growing. And this particularly has the frigate birds and very unique mammals that, as many of them, would be endemic. So we changed to Baja Sur. And here in Baja Sur, we entered the Biscarino Biosphere Reserve. It's a World Heritage Site, and it's the largest one in Latin America. This is where the paradise for all of you whale watchers or whale lovers. This is where the only species of whale that exists in the world that has been reported to have a friendly behavior takes place. So we have the two lagoons, Guerrero Negro here, the larger one, and San Ignacio here, and more in the south, both in the Pacific. This is some of your fellow Rhodes Scholars visitors who are on a boat like this, Panga, beautiful, pristine, as far as your eyes can reach, non-humans around, and the whales visiting close to our boats. That's not the only thing happening. It's also in Guerrero Negro, the largest marine salt production in the world. And again, cave paintings that have been really compared to the ones important in Spain and in France. Anybody interested could check out a book by Harry W. Crosby, which who wrote this book and has been in interviews and all that, talking about the mountain range that holds these cave paintings. Most of them can be reached only by a mule ride, but some of them can be reached by car or truck. Missions are still standing by the Jesuits. So whenever you are visiting, you go there, look at the very well definition of some of these cave paintings. And this is a people. What we are doing in our national parks is that we are creating this as a place for people, local people, to create as the guides who can be going with all of the visitors. You need special permits to visit some of these places. So what the Mexican government is doing is, instead of bringing some tour guides, they are training the locals to be able to carry out that for visitors. Oases are definitely the reason why some of the, well, all of the missions were located in that area. And again, beautiful photo of one of the sierras in southern Baja, which we know as it's like the industry of the water. All the water that comes into Baja depends on the sierras. So I'm reaching now in the last part, the Gulf of California. Gulf of California has another place that is Loreto. It's another marine park with 5 islands. Marine activities, marine activities like kayaking, snorkeling, going on a boat, sport fishing, and so much is there. Whale watching, we have at least these 4 species of whales that can be located. All of these areas in next to the island. So it's there's an airport there, one of the four airports that we have in total in the peninsula, and it's also something that the federal government calls as Pueblo Mágico, or Magic Town, which creates a very unique way of visiting. The third lagoon where whales come and visit is Magdalena Bay. It's a lagunar complex, and of course that's not the only reason. We have, as you can see in these photos, the most extensive mangrove area, which serve mangroves, and that is very nicely to know that it's getting closer to the tropical part of the peninsula, which allows mangroves to grow. They are not as tall as the largest mangroves that are in tropical areas, but they do exist. Look at the extension. And they serve as nursery for birds and fish and all of the seafood that then we are enjoying, as protection from possible hurricanes, storms, and the capture and storage of CO2. This is the Magdalena Bay area with all the green around, depicting all the mangroves, and it's very productive. Up to 70% of total fishing in Baja depends on this small area. Well, not so small, but it's incredible that within the lagunar complex you can get all of these large numbers of some of the species, some of the techniques, and giving the fishermen to depend on that fish. And then we go to the very end. Bahía de La Paz. This is the capital of, again, in the Gulf of California, capital of the state. There are a lot of conservation groups, universities, research institutes, and very close, and the water being provided not only to La Paz, but actually to Los Cabos region from the Sierra Laguna, another mountain range from this backbone that goes all along the peninsula. This is one national park, protected area, that is Balandra, again because of the mangroves. Look at all these frigates and the beauty compared to some of the colors that you can find in the Caribbean. And some of the main visitors are in starting in October and going all along the winter for the whale shark. You can go scuba diving or just snorkeling with them. It's quite an impressive activity. Sea lions that are friendly, the puppy ones, and then we can visit the Espiritu Santo Island, which is protected, pristine, very, very well managed, sustainable in sustainability, and a very good example. So in total, natural protected areas in Baja California are highly productive. This southern part is one of the most important in finding whales. Out of 14 species of whales, you can find 7 of them just in this area. If you come whale watching, there are a total of 7, and 26% of the total whales that exist in the world. There is a coral reef, that is this one, Cabo Pulmo. It's another national park here, located exactly, and this is where the area of Cabos start. Cabo Pulmo has been a very successful national park, especially for divers. It's very, it's like traveling back in time, and it's the fishermen who were willing to start protecting their resources. And the end, the Finisterra. This is maybe something you have been familiar with, the photo of Los Cabos when you go by boat. Cabos is a region that has 3 places: Cabo San Lucas, San Jose del Cabo, and East Cape, or Cabo del Este. Humpbacks are popular to be doing an activity in the winter also in that area. But it has been very highly developed. So this is the same photo we were looking at, this arch, and you look at all the marina, how it has been developed, all the coastline, and it is now one of the most popular places to visit in the world. It is very unique resorts, very high in cost. There is a total of 20,000 rooms, about $300 a night in average. A total of 2.1 million visitors were in Cabos last year, mostly from the US, 75% internationally. What happens is that you have all of these resorts very highly developed. Look at all the number of pools. There are golf courses. There is 20,000 rooms that need to be cleaned constantly. And this photo is where the people who have been migrating to Los Cabos for working at these resorts and in construction are looking at the distance, right? This is the beach. This is far away there, the marina, and they have a lack of quality of life, lack of water, and it's very challenging with this population growth in numbers in a few years, how we are facing this beautiful view of Baja California, of in the north 3.5 million people living, in the south almost getting closer to 1 million, and facing the challenges of any conservation, which is being developed in the both ends, north and south, and anything that has to do with human activities go around. How are we gonna provide the fresh water? Is how far is the urban development gonna be? Where does the limit between a natural conserved area and the development for economic activities start? There is a lot of more marine traffic that affects all of these birds and sea fish and the marine mammals. And we are working. How can we work with these opportunities that are responsibilities for us, for the world, as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and holding all of this, the diversity, and not allowing the natural resources depletion. I'm sorry, it was a little bit more than 30 minutes, but thank you for listening. And this is the question.
Great, thank you so much, Veronica. That was great. I know a lot of ground to cover in a short time. So we are going to start our Q&A session now. So if you have a question for Veronica, you can use your question and answer icon that's located down at the bottom of your screen. Veronica, to start us off, just going off of your last slide there, we do have a question from Susan, who was wondering, how do the people of Mexico keep the 182 areas from having their protections removed? In the US, we are constantly fighting with the government when they are delisting a protected area. So what efforts are being done by the people of Mexico to keep them?
Well, definitely, it's very similar. It's a constant struggle. We have a lot of nonprofit groups, the research institutes, the universities. We are always like having to keep in an eye, what's going to change every new term? What are they going to decide, the government? Do they want to make them smaller or something? The only good thing is that since we have 6 different categories, many of them actually allow the people to carry out activities. You can live within the boundaries of a natural protected area. You can have cattle that is being raised there. You can carry out some fishing activities. So a lot of people are actually willing to just do it in a regulated way. So some of the times it's not only about making them smaller or not adding that many, but it's actually about working with the local communities in that change of thinking, of being able to live out of those resources in a sustainable way. But definitely it's a constant struggle, and we always need to be under surveillance.
Mhm. Um, that kind of brings me to a question we have from Patricia, who is wondering about the islands. Are they inhabited by people at all, or are there a lot of endemic species there that there shouldn't be any human inhabitants?
Well, actually, it's both. Um, that's I didn't even want to go there because that's even makes more extensive. But the way a lot of land in Mexico is distributed is something that happens in the late 30s by the president then, that distributed the land in something we call ejido. It's a concept that a lot of people can own acres and acres, sometimes by the thousands, and still they own it today, the places that have not been developed. So when the government comes and decides that that would be a national protected area, the people do not have to live. So there are people living there in the highlands, and they are just now being told again how to live within the new regulations, that this is not just owning the land. They can still own the land, but now they have to talk always to the government whenever they want to build something or they want to use the water in a certain way. But the number of population is really, really low. So it's not really a problem in the highlands.
Virginia would like to know, do any indigenous communities remain in Baja?
Yes, not in the south, but in the northern part. We have Tijuana right there in the border, and the southern next city is Ensenada, where I'm currently living. And this is a valley. Well, it's a coastline, but next to it there is a valley in the east that has still today Kumeyaay and Pai Pai indigenous groups. The language is disappearing. There are very few elders that are still speaking it, but there is some groups that are working with them, trying to keep them. And then in the Colorado River Delta, Cucapa, which is another community that depends on fishing, and they are still speaking their language, and they're still carrying out a lot of their communities. I just have to say that these communities or these groups were nomadic when the Jesuits or the missionaries came. So they are very particular in the history of Mexico because they were not doing any agriculture. They were hunters and gatherers. So that is really another chapter of how this indigenous, compared to whatever we might be thinking of the indigenous groups in central Mexico, on in Indians of Chiapas or next to Guatemala kind of groups. These are a total different, more in the Jumano group.
So going back to the tourism in the area, we have a lot of people who are wondering just about general pollution and human interaction. Do we see tourism kind of attributing a lot to the pollution in the area?
Well, the most populated areas is the border with the United States. So that's Tijuana and Mexicali. Within them hold almost 3 million people. The rest of the peninsula goes almost inhabited. I mean, uninhabited, like there's, in some areas like the Bujum Valley, there's like one person living every 10 square kilometers. So yes, you see, unfortunately, some plastic here, some plastic there, and but there's no industries, right? They're depending on fishing, but the fishing though gives this. It's a risk for a lot of species because they are using these nets. So there is pollution. It is a very well preserved area in general. It's like one of the most pristine areas in the world, except the most populated north next to the border, and the most populated Cabos region, but it's still very, very pristine. But when you are thinking of how fast things grow, and if we don't pay attention like right now and do something to stop it, it could become very risky because these are very fragile ecosystems also. So yes, we do have a situation, and with the pollution of water, there's mining. Many of our last governors in Baja, both the states, have been willing to give permits on open mining activities, which are very dangerous for polluting the water resources that come from the mountain ranges. So we are dealing with that right now as a very, very high risk.
We've also got a few questions that I know a lot of our Road Scholar participants have taken part in the gray whale migration program. So some folks are wondering if you could talk a little bit about the numbers of the gray whales and what we've seen in the past few years. Have we seen the numbers going down, going up? If there's any.
Yes, for the last, I would say 3 years, I would call them seasons, which is always in the winter, that we have been waiting the El Nino conditions. So it was kind of not happening right away when the scientists predicted it, but actually we've been having rainy seasons. Those of you who are in Southern California, we have been sharing this particularly high high rainy season. Like it was one very rainy season one year, and the next one more or less, the third one not so much, and then again we had 2 in a row. So with this, that's one of the things that the numbers have been acting weird. Some people think it's because of that. Others think that maybe because it's such a healthy population, the gray whales, because actually it's very healthy, like the numbers are going from 20,000 to 22,000 to 26,000. The thing is that when they are in their feeding grounds in the Arctic, so these massive whales are depending on tons of amphipods, which are tiny little like shrimps that live in the mud and in the waters. In the soil, in the ground of the Arctic. And what's going on in the Arctic is that what maybe has been having some of these whales not being in a good size, healthy, not well fed, to be able to do their migration. So there has been actually last year being found the most number of dead whales along the coastline of California and Oregon. And some of them have been reported to be skinny whales. Sometimes it's kind of a cycle, but it's not what is going on actually in Baja, the numbers well, but since they migrate, it is a very global issue, and they are still trying to figure out if this is really what's happening about the Arctic availability of food.
Interesting. Now I think we have time for like maybe one more question here. This is kind of a combination of a few questions, but folks are wondering, what can we do as tourists to kind of help the biodiversity of Baja when we come and visit?
Now, that's a very nice question. I think by visiting, you are doing a lot, because I think that it really is kind of a certain spirit to really like it. Except for the 2 very ends of the Baja Peninsula, the rest is something that is so unique that there's not a lot of human activity there. So just by being willing to enjoy, all of these open spaces where sometimes people say there's nothing here, but meaning there's nothing built by humans except the road you are on many, many times. So having that attitude of saying, I want to support communities which are still depending on fishing, ecotourism, maybe plant collecting, that I'm going to, stay in their cabins, stay in their hotels, buy at their stores. That's what we do, I think, as visitors, as eco-tourists or eco-visitors. And I think that's a great start. And once you are there, we definitely just promote a lot, the golden rules for visiting pristine areas, which is do not take anything but your memories and photos, and do not leave anything but your footsteps. And if it's possible, not even that. So I think that's the very general spirit and attitude of appreciating and telling others that this is also Mexico. This is a lot of people caring about the environment and spreading the word. And traveling on the only and one Highway 1. Fortunately, there's not that many roads you can take. So we keep the humans in one area, and that helps us do the conservation work more easily.
Oh, well, that's great. So That is all the time we have for today, everyone. Again, I want to thank our expert instructor, Veronica Luca, for a wonderful presentation here today. Veronica will be back next week on Wednesday, July 29th for a virtual field trip to Baja California. And again, you can see Veronica on our Rhodes Scholar program number 12315, The Great Gray Whale Migration in Baja's Natural Wonders. So a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. Should you wish to donate to Rhodes Scholar, again, the link to do so is www.rhodescholar.org/give. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.